Hi everyone, Deep the Knee Breath Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Alexis Marshall album, House of Lull, House of When. This is the debut full-length solo album of vocalist, writer, and frontman for the noise rock band Daughters, Alexis Marshall, which follows Daughters' recent reunion that saw the band go on an incredible tour, drop an incredible album. But I think the worst thing that you could do going into this Alexis Marshall project is assume it's going to scratch the same itches as a Daughters record. Yes, this thing is heavy, it's foreboding, it is harsh, and given the vocals and lyrics are coming from Marshall, of course there's going to be some overlap there in terms of some depraved, sinister, and anxious emotions being explored. But that's kind of where the similarities start and end, since House of Lull is less a rock album and more an industrial, experimental, noise spoken word album, which is very much not based around the super straightforward chorus verse chorus structures. The presentation of the vocals and the sounds on this LP, it's a lot more dramatic, theatrical. The progressions on these tracks are all very linear, and the instrumental palettes emphasize texture and harshness over melodies and chords. So as a result, we kind of get the intensely crushing sense of dread on the last two Daughters records, but like completely uninterrupted. No edge taken off in any way whatsoever. Rarely even a break in tension, as this record feels like it's just perpetually pulling at my psyche until it's about to snap. Now that is basically the vibe of this LP, and that is pulled off to varying degrees of success given the performances and the way these tracks develop. Hounds in the Abyss, for example, which was a teaser in the lead up to this LP. I love the loose primal drums on this track, the shrill, tinny, ringing tones that sit atop the mix, as well as the droning bass. Then there's also the extreme feelings of paranoia and confusion expressed in Marshall's lyrics. But everything in the mix getting slowly covered in a bit of distortion, reverb, and delay as it moves along is not significant enough of a change for such a lengthy piece, at least for me. To a degree, I have similar feelings about No Truth in the Body. These tracks aren't necessarily bad, I just wish there was more to them. But then we also have Open Mouth, which has an instrumental palette similar to that of Hounds in the Abyss, but with a way more fevered performance. The vocals, the drums, the drones, just everything feels like it's being delivered at a heightened intensity and pace. I was happy to find some other electrifying pockets of the record as well, and some interesting concepts too. There's the opener, Drink from the Oceans, Nothing Can Harm You, which has these frighteningly sour piano chords, these distant howling reed notes as well. There is so much dread in the first minute of this thing. Listening to this, I feel like I'm transported to an area that's very desolate, very dark, very lonely. Plus the way Marshall is just screaming out on this track, crying. It's like he's desperate for some kind of like response from someone. Then there's the crushing second half of the song, which I think I could only categorize as being industrial noise metal. It just gets heavier and heavier, louder and louder, the vocals more and more manic. I recently did an interview with Marshall where I believe he brought up the third track on the record being inspired by these feelings of fear and confusion around the restrictions that were being announced during the early days of the pandemic, the lockdowns, the precautions people needed to take, and he was not joking. As the whole track sounds like a panicked brawl of drums and chaotic sax solos with Marshall screaming over them, "Stay! Stay where you are! Don't touch anyone! You have obligations!" In a way that's truly horrifying. When I listen to this, all I see in my head is footage of people fighting it out in grocery stores over paper towels and toilet paper. The following Youth as Religion and Religion as Leader presents an interesting idea on the record, as it sounds like between these tracks, Marshall delivers two variations on the same or very similar spoken word piece, and then applying that piece to heavily contrasting instrumentals in order to display some kind of separation or duality, I'm sure. The first of these two tracks has a very somber, measured vocal delivery, literally spoken word, against what sounds like these very heavy, bellowing, ringing prepared piano notes that swell and gorge with distortion at a few different points during the song. Then the second of the two tracks brings more aggressive, pounding drums. Lots of metallic bangs and clangs, just what sounds like found objects having the shit beaten out of them. All of this building up into a fiery call-and-response vocal passage between Marshall and Kristen Hayter of Lingua Ignota fame, where they are just screaming their brains out, especially Hayter, whose vocals are frightening on this track with this "young man, you have no other" mantra that they keep repeating. This truly is like a maddening peak of the record. Then I think the track Night Moving makes for a pretty fitting closer. The way the various drones on this track harmonize is genuinely creepy. This song almost feels like being taken by the abyss that the intro track is flirting with. Marshall as well delivers his poetry very closely mic'd, almost in this like ASMR style, with even his own voice being buried in the sound a bit, which I think further illustrates a very subtle theme throughout the record, and that's finding contrasts, strong contrasts in the midst of all these very dark sounds. But with that being said, I still think there are portions of this LP that are a tad bit one-dimensional. Whether that's a single piece needing more variation across its length, or even the entire LP, I think, could have used more changes in terms of its instrumental palettes, given the almost endless array of noises and effects that could have been applied to this record. But having said all that, if this record is a sign of Marshall going a little bit more solo into the future, I think this is a very good start, as it shows his solo work can be just as compelling as his stuff with any other band he's been in, albeit for different reasons, but still. Feeling a decent 2 strong 7 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Alexis Marshall, forever.